We don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
yeah,
that's waste.
All right. So Jon Stewart recently interviewed for a C-SPAN event Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks, a Biden official, and he pressed her on the fact that the military has not and cannot pass an audit. She got very testy and didn't really like this. So take a listen to this clip.
There is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose these pieces.
Then please educate me on
sure.
What
so an audit
the
is exactly what you just described,
yes.
which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit or the fact that the DOD has not passed an audit is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there. So
what is
now
it
it's a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
yeah,
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure
that
I didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for.
So look, we've disagreed with Jon Stewart in the past plenty, but he has some points here, and she really comes off so condescending and so ill-prepared. I mean, think about what she admits here. The United States in 2022 spent $108 billion on our military budget. That's more than China, India, the UK, Russia, France, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Japan, and South Korea combined. I mean, it is a jaw-dropping amount of money, and she's just nonchalant about the fact that they can't tell us where it went. That's what she says. She says the fact that we can't pass an audit is because we can't tell you where all the money that we've spent has gone, and like we can't show you, we don't have accounting. Right? Like we don't have paper trail for all the money we've spent and all the things we've done with the taxpayer dollars. And she says, but that's not suggestive of waste or fraud or abuse. And it's like, excuse me. I mean, sure, we have lots of other evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse. We left behind $7 billion worth of military equipment in Afghanistan for the Taliban to arm themselves with. So we have lots of other evidence of that. But isn't it bad enough in its own right that they spent over $800 billion and they can't tell us what the heck they've done with it?
Well, as Stuart points out, of course that is waste, right? If you cannot figure out what you're doing with the money, then certainly some of it's going to waste. But I also think it is indicative of fraud and abuse, because people who are ethical with their money, people who are trying to do the right thing, are keeping tabs on where it goes and understand that if you're not following where the money's going, it's probably going to get used for bad purposes. It's probably going to get used towards things that it doesn't need to go towards. I mean, it's ridiculous for her to try to make that distinction and then to watch her be so pretentious and giggle about the fact that they can't track billions of taxpayer dollars, that they cannot say if those taxpayer dollars are even being used in ethical ways, that they're not being used to harm people, that they aren't being used to enrich people. It's so, infuriating. And I think that this is the problem people really have with these people in government agencies is there's no accountability for her. There's no accountability for people in her positions. And she's sitting there laughing about it because there's no repercussions and she knows it.
Yeah, she does. And to me, this is just everything that's wrong with the military, our wasteful and bloated military in a nutshell. The fact that they feel entitled to this insane amount of money every year, and even the other federal government agencies, which are quite wasteful, can at least tell you where the money went. Right? They have passed audits, because passing an audit doesn't actually mean that you're not doing anything wrong or wasting the money. It just means you can tell us, okay, we spent $5 on pencils, $5 on apples and $5 on oranges. That's where our $15 went. That's all passing the audit means in this context. And they can't even do that. It may well be that there's no need for them to be purchasing apples, right? So that's complete, or they threw all the apples away and it was wasted. They can't even pass this basic threshold of accountability. And yet most people in both parties are just willing to heap more and more money to them every year. Like I think the national defense is one of the core, legitimate, important functions of a federal government. But why do we need to spend more than the next 8-9 countries combined, especially if we're going to spend all that money and then not even be, they're not even going to do us the favor of telling us how they're spending our taxpayer dollars. To me, it's outrageous.
Well, it's like I said earlier, it's the illusion of safety. They keep telling people, if you don't do this, you're going to be attacked. Meanwhile, we're waging a proxy war with the nuclear power, but they're definitely keeping you safe.
Also, like, the UK is safe, France is safe, Germany is safe, Japan is safe, and they're spending the freaking 10th of what we're spending.
Well, because we're covering their butts. But yeah, I mean, point taken. I totally agree. But yeah, I think as a whole, Americans have got to wake up to some of this, especially on the right. You know, if you claim to be limited government, you claim to want to see individual liberty, you want to keep more of your tax dollars. I promise you, nothing meaningful changes until you start cutting this budget. The defense budget needs to be cut. It needs to be slashed. There needs to be more accountability. A lot of these agencies need to go. We need to get out of most of these countries we're involved in. There's no real workaround. That's the plain old hard facts, and people need to start paying a bit more attention and quit just, you know, it's kind of this patriotism that they push on all of us. Like, hug your military members when you see them, thank them for their service. It's like this feel-good thing that they've made patriotic, when in reality, it's super corrupt. And most of this is not going towards anything close to keeping you safe. Most people who leave the military will tell you that they were used and abused by the military too, and were misled on their missions. So I'm just tired of them.
So sorry to interrupt, but Jon Stewart points out elsewhere, I watched this full interview, that a shocking percentage of military members are on food stamps, right? And so the idea that they're using all this money to compensate our troops is simply not true.
No. And I will say this for him, I disagree with John a good bit on a lot of policies, but he's somebody who actually means it when he says he supports the troops, and he does a lot of work actually trying to like look out for them and elevate what happens to them under the system. So I do give him kudos for that.